the crossroads that as a young researcher you may find yourself, or probably as a postgraduate student, is on the subject of ethical approval. Many a times, researchers wonder, at what point do I need an ethical approval for my study? And this is a very controversial subject among researchers all over the world. My name is Dr. Felix Ayodeloile, and in this video, I want to present to you and discuss the topic, when and why do I need an ethical approval for my research? At what point do I need an ethical approval? Many a times, some believe it is not in all researches, it's not in all study, while some believe that it should be in all studies. Now, let's look at it in detail. At what point in time do I need an ethical approval? Now, by way of introduction, an ethical approval is designed to ensure that your research is conducted responsibly and that the participant, the researcher, and the institution involved are all protected, the rights of these individuals. And of course, it is also a requirement by academics and professional body that before we conduct a study or a research, an ethical approval should be sought. Now, an ethical approval is actually a permit that is given or granted by an institutional review board, maybe in a university or maybe in a professional organization. Now, the idea is to assess the risks and the benefits and also the procedure that were to be used in a particular study before that study is conducted. And the goal is to ensure that this procedure actually comply with ethical standard. If you are going to conduct a study where you are going to be using human subjects, there is a place of ethical approval. Okay, there's a need for compliance with standard. And even if it is not even humans, even you are using animals in the veterinary study, we also have the requirement of obtaining an ethical approval. Now, the question again is, when do I need an ethical approval? Now, whenever you are conducting a study that involves human subjects, or maybe animal, human alike, you will need an ethical approval. If you are conducting a survey that you have to gather sensitive data from the community, individuals, you will need an ethical approval. The third scenario is when you are working with vulnerable population. Maybe you are working with maybe children, you are working with a disabled individual in the community, you will need ethical approval. Or maybe you are conducting a medical research. More often than not, medical research will involve individuals. And you need to get information that has to do with their psychology, their social well-being. A social form of research, you will always need an ethical approval. Now, there are certain studies that actually require ethical approval specifically. The first category is the clinical trials or the medical testing. You have to test drug on individual. Maybe you have just developed a candidate drug and there's the clinical trial stage of that particular drug. Such kind of study will require an ethical approval. Maybe you are conducting a study that has to do with educational study involving students. Ethical approval should be sought. Or you are conducting an online survey, you are collecting personal opinion, perception of individuals or community or a group, you will need an ethical approval. And of course, observational study that has to do with the public or maybe in the private setting will require an ethical approval. Now again, why is ethical approval so important? Number one, it is designed to protect the rights of all the participants, every individual that is involved, including even the researcher himself. So we protect the rights of the respondents, the subjects involved, be it humans or even animal. So we protect their rights. Now the second point is that it also ensures that informed consent is sought before conducting that particular study. Now it is important that people volunteer for such a study. An ethical approval requires that people are not coerced into participating in a particular research. While the third point is also it is designed to maintain research integrity and public trust. Okay, and the fourth point is important for publication and funding. Many funding organizations or funding institutions will not actually fund a study if ethical approval is not properly sought for that particular study. Now let's look at the consequence of skipping ethical approval. The first point is that ethical approval, when it is skipped, it could result into a serious legal breach. That is why seeking an ethical approval or obtaining an ethical approval for your study will protect you legally before the law. The implication is that you have sought the involvement of professionals and they are giving you the permission to go ahead with that study. And again, it also invalidates a research result if ethical approval is not sought. And number three, most journals Don't consider an article or a manuscript suitable for publication if ethical approval is not sought for that study. Many a times when you want to submit your work, the journal will require that you provide evidence of ethical approval, no matter the, the finding of that particular study. Such article or finding may not be considered publishable if due process is not followed. And the last point is that it could also result to institutional disciplinary action if ethical approval is not studied. Uh, Ethical approval is a very important and serious matter for researchers generally. So, in terms of principle, it is designed to ensure that there's respect for persons involved, the subject involved, even a particular study, in any study whatsoever. Okay, even if it is animal, there's need for respect, there's need for humane treatment of even animal. We also talk about the beneficence. The importance of ethical approval is to ensure that that procedure you are taking your subject through, it has benefits to them and minimal risk, minimal harm. It poses minimal harm even to the subject. And the third point there is that it ensures justice. There's fair treatment of participants, even based on selection. It means you are not selecting certain subjects to participate. We are not enrolling certain subjects based on their disadvantaged situation. So justice and fairness is very critical. And of course, number four, confidentiality should be maintained. When we collect information from respondents on the field, we must ensure that their privacy is kept. So it also borders on data protection. The information we gather in the course of our study must be thoroughly protected, must be well protected. Okay. Now, what are the steps for obtaining ethical approval? The first thing that you must do as a researcher is to ensure that you prepare a detailed research proposal for your study. Research proposal must precede every research study. This will outline how you intend to carry out that particular study. And of course, it is important to also identify and complete institutional form that you have presented to an ethical review board. They are going to present you with some forms depending on the modality of that institutional review board. And again, it's important you submit the relevant ethics even to that committee. Any information, how you want to actually carry out that procedure. And of course, if there are feedbacks from such review board, it's important to address those considerations. It could be in terms of the procedure you want to use. More importantly, it is important that there's fair treatment even to your subjects. Now, what are the tips for a successful application for an ethical approval? Number one, you must be transparent. Okay, the more transparent you are, the better it is, even for your application to be considered. Be transparent on the procedure, the risk you are going to subject even your respondent or the subject of your study to. And the language must be clear. The language of your application must be clear, the language you use, maybe in the course of that particular study. And of course, you provide robust data protection strategy. The data you are going to gather from the subject of your study, they must be protected, how you are going to encrypt them, where you are going to save them, is it in cloud? Those must be clearly spelled out in your application. And of course, there must be an inclusion of what? Of consent and withdrawal procedure. The subject, if it is human, should be free to voluntarily withdraw without any repercussion, without any implication from that particular study. Okay? Now, conclusively, ethical approval is very vital and is a responsible thing to do as a researcher when you conduct your research. It requires that whenever humans, you have to get information, data from humans, or you have to interact with humans, ethical approval should be sought, either medical, in the medical field, or even in social field, in social-based research, ethical approval should be sought. Okay, and the essence is to ensure safety. Okay, safety to your subject, and it is to address all issues that has to do with legal issue, and of course, it is ensure credibility for whatsoever study we have conducted. Now, there are more information about ethical approval as to where to apply to. You can find that in the second part to this particular video. But this is the much we are going to take on the why and when ethical approval is needed. You may have some experience in the course of applying for ethical approval. Please don't hesitate to share your experience on the comment section to this particular video. And you will also want to like the video, share this video, and subscribe to this page for more wonderful information on research and statistics. Again, my name is Dr. Felix Ayodele Oyeleye. Thank you for listening. I will see you in my next video.